Welcome to the Super Bowl Eve weekend. I am Brian Kress, the awesome voice. Across from me, my brother with another mother, Coach 24, Darwin Penny. How are you doing, sir?
It is a great day in Kansas City. We're excited about it. We got a little bit of Super Bowl snow today, and we're looking forward to what should be a great game.
Yes, absolutely. It should be an awesome game. It should be, I think it's going to be one of the best. Now, this is Any Given Sunday on KUAW, and running the show for us, the producer of our show, DJ Scatter, George Walker. How are you doing tonight, sir?
Hey, it's a wonderful day right here in Kansas City today.
Yes, absolutely. Now, this morning, it was a bummer because I had to drive in this stuff, and I imagine you did too. And I heard 635 was closed down because there had so many accidents and stuff.
I was surprised at how many accidents I saw on 169, or I don't know if it was so much an accident or people who had lost traction and were no longer on the road. I spent about a half an hour shoveling my driveway, and it was the heavy wet snow.
Oh my God!
This
I know.
morning. So that's crazy. I've been in Kansas City long enough now to know the differences in snow.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness! And Darren Smith, who he's with 810, and he's out there at the Super Bowl, doing interviews, and he got to see Rihanna. So I asked him, I said, did you get a phone number? Because he said, yeah, she looked at me for a second. So,
all right. Probably one of her 10 phones that she has.
Right, actually. Yeah, absolutely. But he was like, oh, I am so glad I'm in Arizona and not in the Kansas City weather right now. And I'm like, oh, man, he is so lucky. And so is all the other guys that are doing this, and the Chiefs. So, but it all melted. I didn't have to worry about delivering it in the bad weather and all that. It just wasn't as warm as I'd like, but it's all good. But saying that, Kansas City, Philadelphia, Sunday night, 5:25. What is your assessment?
Well, I think it's going to come down to good old fundamentals and what we talk about, who turns the ball over. The Chiefs have a phenomenal record in the Mahomes era when they win the turnover battle. I think their record is basically something in one. I think they've really lost one game where they've actually won the turnover battle in the Mahomes era. When they've lost the turnover battle, it's a little bit more manageable. He's still got a winning record in every scenario where they've won the turnover battle or whether they've lost the turnover battle by 1, 2, or 3. Mm-hmm. They still have a winning record. If they were -3 in the turnover battle, then they've got a record that's like 17-11. Right. So it just is going to bode well to whoever wins that turnover battle, who makes a mistake first, and does it have a big emphasis on the momentum of the game. The question still bears out when you listen to most people and they break this game down positions by positions. Most people think the only advantage that the Chiefs have is at quarterback, which is the most critical position when we're talking about NFL football.
Right, absolutely. Jalen Hurts, he has played in several national championship games, but he has never been on the big show because college football's big dance is a lot different than the Super Bowl big dance, or you should say the NFL big dance. Patrick Mahomes has done this twice. Now, saying that, Patrick Mahomes only has 2 touchdown passes and 4 interceptions. So he's not totally dominating the Super Bowls. And of course, with Tampa Bay, he was just running for his life, and I believe that's where most of it. But I believe he has 2 interceptions in both Super Bowls that he is in. Saying that, I feel that he needs to have a stand-up performance. I think this is the time that he really needs to put it together. Now, I will say that the advantage is actually losing to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because he has talked that where he has, enjoyed the fruits of winning the championship and everything else, it's that loss to Tampa Bay that's really has put him in a mindset that he really needed to focus, because I believe, well, I know all the fans, they thought, okay, Tampa, we're going to beat Tampa Bay, we're going to win another Super Bowl, blah, blah, blah. And come to find out, it wasn't like that. So he is going to, he's really put the mindset, and I think Andy Reid has also put the mindset that they have really focused on this game.
Yeah, I think the other thing you want to look at is, you talked about it a little bit, Super Bowl experience versus non-Super Bowl experience, right? Regardless if you've played in some big games in college and elsewhere. The advantage in Super Bowl matchups where you had a quarterback that had previously been to a Super Bowl versus one who it was their first Super Bowl has weighed significantly in favor of the quarterback who's been to the Super Bowl before. All right. If you look at the first 2 Super Bowls, you have Bart Starr having, won both of those, right? Super Bowl III, you get to where neither quarterback has experience. Super Bowl IV, which the Chiefs won, was huge because Lenny Dawson had Super Bowl experience.
Yes.
Super Bowl V, right, where you get to Earl Morrow wind up coming in for Johnny Unitas. Both of them had played in Super Bowl III versus Craig Morton had not played in a Super Bowl. The next year, Staubach had, even though he didn't start, he had played in Super Bowl V. Now he wins Super Bowl VI over Greasy,
right,
who had not been in Super Bowl.
Yep.
And then you continue moving forward, where now Greasy has a year of experience versus Billy Kilmer, and then Greasy over Fred Tarkington. The one that was a little bit different is Tarkington the next year has experience and Bradshaw doesn't.
Right.
Right. And so you could look throughout. Yeah, you have a few instances where the guy who doesn't have experience, with our latest one with Nick Foles having no experience beating Tom Brady. Eli Manning twice didn't have as much experience in the Super Bowl as Tom Brady, but he did. So now does this favor, this is Mahomes' third trip, where is Jalen Hurts' first trip?
Right, absolutely. I think the advantage is Mahomes. And like I said, he knows how everything runs. For Jalen, this is new, but I know he's got some players that have played in the Super Bowl that will help him. Kelsey, Lane Johnson, Fletcher Cox, and a few of those. You also have an inexperienced coach who has not been into a Super Bowl. He's only, second-year head coach, whereas you've got a guy that's 24 years of head coach experience. He's got 5 Super Bowl. Well, now this is his 5th Super Bowl that he's been in. He's 2-2 in those He is. Yeah, he's 1-3.
Yep.
So this is really crucial for Andy Reid. Now, saying this, I listened to a little bit today, and this is a 2-part question. If the Chiefs lose, will it be more on Andy Reid or Patrick Mahomes? And if the Chiefs win, is it because of Patrick Mahomes or is it Andy Reid?
So both of them, when you look at them, are looking at legacy, right?
Yep.
Mahomes wants to be one of those quarterbacks who has multiple Super Bowl titles. And if he were, people are already placing him as one of the greatest to ever play that position. Some would say the most talented quarterback physically to play the position. But the only drawback for people is saying, well, he hadn't done it long enough. And certainly when Brady's got 7 Super Bowl rings,
Right.
it's what labels him as the GOAT. But what you don't want to be is early in his career get to 3, because we know how hard it is to get to a Super Bowl, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it is the thing that I caution Chief fans for, because 5 straight AFC Championship games and 3rd Super Bowl in 5 years, and you got the best quarterback in the league, and you think, man, it's just going to happen every year. Well, nobody knows when the well's going to dry up.
Exactly.
Okay? And, we've seen other talented quarterbacks that you thought, man, this is going to be an annual event, and then all of a sudden, it's no more. Troy Aikman had been in 3 Super Bowls by the time he was 28,
Mm-hmm.
and then never got back.
No.
Right? Favre was relatively young when he got to his first Super Bowl, okay, and went back the next year and then never got back. Aaron Rodgers was early in his career when he got to a Super Bowl. It has never gotten back, and so you just never know how things are going to shape up, and especially with free agency, it's not like the old days where you run the same team out there every year. But it does favor quarterback-driven league. Reed, for a long time, had the label of he can't win the big game, but he's not the first great coach to have that label.
Yep.
Tom Landry had that label for 6 straight years. The Cowboys were called bridesmaids.
Yep.
From 1966 to 1971. They were called bridesmaids. Every year they had either lost in the NFL championship, the Super Bowl, or the conference championship, or even one year they lost in a divisional round to Cleveland. And so you don't want that label. He will go down as, regardless of what happens, Andy Reid will go down as one of the greatest coaches of all time, based on number of wins, and he's had success in 2 different places. Not many coaches can say that. But he doesn't want to, at this point. If they win, I really feel like Mahomes is going to get all the credit. If they lose, I feel like Reed's going to get all the blame.
Yep. And I get that. And, as you were saying, Reed with all the wins, in fact, he is the only coach to have 10-plus playoff wins with 2 different teams. And he did that with Philadelphia and, of course, with Kansas City now. But saying that, it's harder to judge it, with Andy Reid now to like a Tom Landry, because Tom Landry and Don Shula's and the Chuck Knowles, they played maybe 2 playoff games a year, and maybe get to the Super Bowl, whereas, you could play up to 3 games before the Super Bowl, so you have more opportunities to win those games than the coaches in the 70s.
Yeah, we didn't get a wild card round until about 1981.
I thought it was 80 because the
Right.
Raiders, right?
Right. So you could get a wild card spot,
right.
right? Because we had 3 divisions and then 1 wild card.
Right.
But to actually have a wild card round, we were a little bit farther in that. And so, when you got to remember when the Super Bowl started after the '66 season, it was you won your division, and then you were playing for the NFL championship.
Right.
Okay? There were 2 divisions, and you played for the NFL championship. There were no rounds, right?
Right.
It wasn't until a couple of years later where they actually added a round as the merger was starting to come in, where they then had a divisional round and then a conference championship round. Still no wild card round.
Right.
And so to get to that. So they've had more opportunities, and it's the same thing with the quarterbacks. When people who look at quarterback wins, they're going to have more games, more opportunities, right?
Right.
Tom Brady has won as many playoff games as any NFL team.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He has 35.
Right.
And second place is Montana, and I can't remember the exact number. I have 18, but I've also heard it was 16.
Right. Well, until Dallas won this year, now they have 36 playoff wins to Tom Brady's 35.
Right.
But other
right.
than that, he had as many wins as any NFL team.
Right.
That's saying a lot.
It does. It does say a lot.
You know, so just those opportunities to play at least 3 rounds. You know, when you look at if you get a bye, you get a divisional round, and then a conference championship, and then a Super Bowl. And so we know at least 10 times he played 3 games.
Right. Absolutely.
A minimum of 3, right? So that in itself is impressive to see that. And so when you look at Andy Reid, the number of wins that he has, especially with 2 franchises, I'm trying to think of what coaches have actually taken 2 franchises to the Super Bowl. I know Shula did.
You're right. He did with Baltimore and then Miami.
Right. And then you had what's my guy that was Vermeil. Vermeil's taken two franchises.
Yep.
Actually, and then Parcells has taken 2 franchises.
Now Giants, and I'm trying to think.
New England.
Oh, it was. That's right. He lost to
Green Bay. Right.
Yeah.
So Parcells has taken 2 franchises. Andy Reid has taken 2 franchises.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's it. I
think Gruden has taken 2.
No, Gruden.
He won with Tampa, and then didn't he go with the Raiders?
No, he didn't.
Okay.
Raiders had only played in 2003, and before that, it was in the 80s.
Okay.
So
I was thinking that next year that he.
No,
okay.
Raiders haven't been back since they lost.
He had come from the Raiders over to Tampa.
Right.
So yeah, it's select company.
Yeah, it is.
Whenever you look at how many coaches who have taken 2 franchises to at least the title game, right, regardless if they won it or not, but at least have taken that step. So, so now who's the only one who's actually won? Oh, Dan Reeves also is in that group.
That's right, Denver and Atlanta.
Yeah,
but he's the only one that has not won one. At least every other coach has won at least one time, and whereas Dan Reeves has lost with both.
Right.
So, and last weekend I sat and watched all those Super Bowls, and I'll tell you what, I really enjoyed it. And some of the stuff that I saw, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot, because I mean there's 57 Super Bowls. Well, there will be 57 after Sunday. And I used to be able to tell you Super Bowl 1, who it was, where it was, who was the MVP, what the score, and all that. But after a while,
it's too many.
It is. It is. But it was really good to see those. And now let me ask you this, and this is a question. So I think the highest scoring. The most points ever scored in a Super Bowl was 55 by San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the NFC has, during their heydays in the 80s and 90s, have scored a bunch. What is the record for an AFC team? And you will have to go back a few years.
Yeah. Wow. Just to think about that. I'm trying to think of how many. They didn't score very many points in that game. I'm going to probably say maybe 38, maybe 38.
And who did that?
Didn't the Patriots score about 38 points when they lost?
No, you're right in the number, but it was the Los Angeles Raiders 38-9 over the Washington Redskins.
Super
and
Bowl
yes,
18.
it was Redskins at the time, and I know we're not supposed to say it,
Redskins.
but Redskins in the
Super Bowl 18.
Yep, Super
Yeah.
Bowl 18. Marcus Allen rushing for 175 yards and getting the MVP. But I was like, wow, because you had Chicago, you had Dallas, you had San Francisco several times, scoring more than that. And
Well, the 80s, each decade has kind of gone back and forth, right?
right.
The AFC dominated the Super Bowl in the 70s, with the Steelers winning, the Raiders, the Dolphins doing back-to-back, and so they pretty much dominated. And then in the 80s, the NFC
Yep.
kind of took back hold with the Niners winning multiple championships, the Redskins winning multiple championships, and then throw in the Giants and the Bears in there. So it was a dominance where the AFC just other than the Raiders' 2 victories.
Well, the Raiders, when they won Super Bowl 18, it was who was it that beat them? It was the Denver Broncos.
Right.
In what was it? Super Bowl 30,
30,
31, 32.
It's
Right.
32
Right.
and 33.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because Cowboys win 30, the Packers win 31, and then the Broncos win 32 and 33. So that was a long gap.
Right, very long gap because the AFC or the NFC didn't go that long without winning it because they did put in a few NFC victories. The Cowboys won it. In fact, it was the Cowboys were the only one that won in the 1970s for the NFC.
Right. They won twice, Super Bowl 6, Super Bowl 12.
Right.
But, yeah, it was dominated by the Steelers, 4 titles, Dolphins 2, and Colts 1, and the Raiders 1.
And the Raiders won.
So, yeah. So
now, do you count you don't count the Raiders because Raiders was actually 80, wasn't it?
No. The Raiders won it in
Well,
76.
I know, but I'm talking about the other
Super
one.
Bowl 11.
Right, but I'm talking about the other one.
No,
'Cause
that's the only
said-
one. That's the only one I'm
Right,
counting.
that's what I was
Yeah.
going to say.
Yeah.
I was going to say it was just one and not 2.
No, I was just saying they're
Right.
1, Baltimore's 1,
Right.
the Dolphins 2, and the rest of them, non-Dallas, belong to the Steelers.
Right, exactly. So, and the NFC, they had, you had a fluctuation of teams. You had the Redskins, you had the Giants, you had the Cowboys, you had the 49ers, you had the Bears.
Well, when you look at it in the 70s, 5 of those trips in the 70s to the Super Bowl were Cowboys trips.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then the Vikings made 3 trips in the 70s. They had one in the 60s,
right.
and they had 3 trips in the 70s, right? So it was either the Cowboys or the Vikings, and then you add in 1 trip by the Redskins, 1 trip by the Rams in '79.
Right.
So it was just pretty much dominated by 3 teams. The Cowboys pretty much dominated the NFC East. The Rams dominated the NFC West, and the Vikings dominated what was then the NFC Central.
Right.
And so that was pretty much. And like I say, other than the Redskins being in there.
Right.
So, but yeah, and then all of a sudden, the 80s and the 90s, the NFC dominates, and then all of a sudden, in the 2000s, it starts to kind of even out especially because of the Patriots' dominance.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got a few other teams in there, but yeah, dynasties are hard to come by, and especially in the era of free agency that we live in today,
Right.
where players are not the same guys. I mean, when you look at the Steelers when they won it during the '74 season. When they come back and win in the '79 season, it's pretty much almost the same guys, right? The one thing you knew, your backfield and your receivers were still the same. It was still Swan Stallworth, Franco Harris, Rocky Blyer, and Terry Bradshaw.
and your defensive line was the same. The linebackers
curtain.
were, steel curtain.
Right.
So now, so what makes it more impressive for Kansas City is, say, those 5 years with the Steelers. Well, the 5 years with Kansas City, I mean, how many players do you have now than they did when they played New England in the first AFC Championship game? There's only a handful of players that are still there. I believe you have Chris Jones, you have Travis Kelce, you have Patrick Mahomes. The offensive line is all new. The defensive line is all new, with the exception of Jones, and everybody else has been replaced or have moved on to another team. So I mean, where you had the stability in the set, because even the Dallas had the same, the same skilled players, backfield, the doomsday defense. The Chiefs was totally different.
The team that they went to Super Bowl 10 with was basically the same team that they went to Super Bowl 13 with.
Yep.
Right? There was a big change from Super Bowl 6 to Super Bowl 10 because you had the retirement of Lilly and some of the original Doomsday guys had moved on and retired, and then all of a sudden 75 they had 12 rookies make the team. They weren't even expected to make it. They make the Super Bowl as a wild card. They were the first wild card to make the Super Bowl. And when they lose Super Bowl 10, but those guys were all relatively young. Hollywood Henderson and those guys were rookies. Well, when they come back to Super Bowl 13, it's the same guys that they won, that they got there with, and then all of a sudden they win in Super Bowl 12, and then 13 they're back with the same guys,
Right.
And very few changes, right? Because you're still dealing with Too Tall Jones, Harvey Martin, Larry Cole, Randy White. Randy White was a rookie in 75 when the first time they went, and the only big change there was one guy in the defensive line that they traded Baltimore to get John Dutton. Big John Dutton.
Yes. Yep.
And that was the only guy that was a change, but he was there for both Super Bowl 12 and 13. So it's a different game, right? Most Chiefs fans can name the guys who are the skill position guys, but a line, trying to talk about the guys that are on the line, that's difficult because those guys, there's always interchangeable parts. Yeah, you probably got one guy that's been there the whole time, but the rest of them are coming and going.
Well, exactly, because even the Dallas of the 90s relatively had the same guys. Now, there was a player or two.
There was one guy that changed.
And that was Larry Allen.
Larry Allen came in after Kevin Gogan took free agency and went to the Raiders.
Right.
But other than that, you had Nate Newton, you had Eric Williams, you had Mark Stepnoski, and then John Giesick, and then Larry Allen came in where Gogan left.
Right.
Other than that, same guys.
Right, exactly.
Right? Irvin on one side, Harper on the other side.
And that
Emmett and Moose and Troy.
And I would say that was roughly the last time you had stability in teams to make it to the Super Bowl. And as you can tell, Dallas hasn't even made it to an NFC Championship game since then. So it tells you a lot there. So.
Yeah, no, because we saw how many people changed during this Brady era. Right. His receivers changed. The only thing that was a constant in that long, what we looked at was basically a 20-year stretch. You wouldn't expect anybody, but just from when they won the first Super Bowl to the third Super Bowl in 4 years, there was a lot of guys that had shifted. They kept, some guys around. Brewski and those guys made it through like those first three Super Bowls, but then by the time they get back a decade later, right, and that's something when we look at Super Bowl history, how fast early in Tom Brady's career they got to Super Bowl, and then all of a sudden there was a drought. Even though they were consistently winning, there was a gap before they got back to the Super Bowl again.
And a lot of that had to do with the defense, because the defense was the one that was really playing the champions, and Tom Brady was just managing in the second half. he was more of the offensive.
Right. I
doer.
saw a ridiculous stat up there when they said you could basically break Tom Brady's career into 3 arguably Hall of Fame careers at his longevity. Certainly the first part of it where he wins 3 Super Bowl in 4 years, and then
Right.
there was a gap in the middle, but he wins a Super Bowl and gets to another Super Bowl. And then on the back end, you see him win another 3 Super Bowls and then one with another team.
Yeah.
It was just amazing to be able to look at that, and to get to 10 Super Bowls.
Absolutely. So we're going to take a break. We're at halftime on any given Sunday show on KUAW. George Walker, Darwin Penny, and myself, Brian Kress. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back. And the question I will ask you is, how much of the rookies have played for the Chiefs in comparison to the Philadelphia Eagles? We'll be back.
We're shining a long overdue spotlight on the hidden figures of untaught history who deserve to be celebrated for their contributions to civil rights, politics, the arts, and beyond.
Nathan Nearest Green, well known for his whiskey-making skills in Lynchburg, Tennessee, the birthplace of Tennessee whiskey. Around the area, it was common knowledge that outstanding whiskey came from Reverend Dan Call's Farm and Distillery. After the congregation voiced their displeasure with their minister being in the booze business, the preacher sold his distillery to a man named Jasper. You know him as Jack Daniel. Uncle Nearest, that's Nathan Green, stayed on as head distiller. The folks of Lincoln County believe Nathan perfected what became known as the Lincoln County process, where whiskey's filtered through sugar maple charcoal prior to aging in charred oak barrels. This process defines Tennessee whiskey and makes it unlike any other distilled spirit in the world. A lot of the details of Nearest Green's life are not known. However, a whiskey maker of Nearest Green's ability isn't forgotten in Tennessee whiskey country. Today, the Uncle Nearest brand is wholly owned by Uncle Nearest Incorporated. An all-minority-led business encompasses a premium-aged whiskey with a blend of 8 to 14-year-old, an 11-year-old minimum age single barrel, and a 7-year-old small batch offering, all mellowed using the Lincoln County process. Scattered remnants of cut stone still remain. The old distillery's been gone for decades. But the legacy of Uncle Nearest is alive and kicking.
You're invited to celebrate Black History Month with TNCRadio.live. We're shining a long overdue spotlight on the hidden figures of untaught history who deserve to be celebrated for their contributions to civil rights, politics, the arts, and beyond.
Nathan Nearest Green, well known for his whiskey-making.
Okay, we are back for the second half of Any Given Sunday. I am Brian Kress, the awesome voice. Coach 24 Darwin Penny across from me. DJ Scatter George Walker behind the scenes running the show. We're on KUAW. And I had asked the question, how much has the rookies contribute this year in comparison to the Eagles?
Well, I think obviously the Chiefs rookies have been huge, especially on the back end. When you look at what Cook and the other
Justin Watson.
Jalen Watson and what those
Jalen.
guys were able to do back end of the secondary. Pacheco has played a huge part late in the season where he's getting the bulk of the carries. And then, even McDuffie has had, his hand in it as well. When we talk about the secondary, I don't know who's other than the one defensive tackle from Georgia, Jordan Davis. I don't know who's made the bigger impact. I mean, Sky Moore was huge in the victory when it came to the AFC Championship game. That return is as big a play as any in the AFC Championship game because it allowed them to be aggressive knowing that, man, we only have to go a certain number of yards, whereas if that would have been a fair catch, then all of a sudden, it's not as easy to get in field goal range. And so that was a huge, huge return. So the Chiefs rookies have played, I think, far bigger role than the Eagles, whereas those guys have been able to sit back because they've got a lot of veterans. They brought in additional veterans this year with their, bringing in guys like Ndamukong Suh and, certainly the big acquisition of the year was bringing in Brown at receiver. And so I just think the Chiefs' rookie class this year has been as good as anybody's rookie class.
Absolutely. So here's the stat that I've had waiting to tell you. Philadelphia had 820 plays of rookies.
Mm-hmm.
The Kansas City Chiefs, 3,752 plays as rookies. Now, Spagnuolo has been known not to play a lot of rookies, but he tries to say that he felt that they were never ready. Well, they had to be ready this year because, you got rid of Chichandra, Ward.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say his first name right now. And you had other players, so that was that was huge. Now, saying this, I also have a little bit of quiz because the Chiefs have not played anybody that has done the RPOs as well as the Eagles. And the Eagles are the first team to be number one in rushing since the 1998 Denver Broncos. So that's been a long time. Now, I have a couple of them. So, in the Super Bowl, who's had the most rushing yards?
In a game?
In a game.
Individual or team?
Individual in all the Super Bowls.
Timmy Smith.
No. Most rushing yards by a quarterback. My apologies. So, most rushing yards by a quarterback in the Super Bowl.
In one game?
In one game.
Man. I'm going to go... for grants. I'm going to say Steve Young.
No.
Okay.
It was Todd McNair. He had 64 yards in Super Bowl 34 against the Rams. In fact, it was one play where
Steve McNair.
No. Oh,
Steve McNair.
Steve McNair.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't know why I wrote Todd.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was thinking Todd because he played for the Chiefs.
Okay.
But yes, Steve McNair
Yep.
of Tennessee, he had 64 yards. Now, who's had the most rushing touchdowns by a quarterback in a Super Bowl game?
Let's go. I'm going to go.
I'll give you a hint. It's in the 80s.
Yeah, I'm probably. I was thinking back in there. McMahon. Jim McMahon.
With 2.
Yeah.
That is, you are absolutely right.
Yeah.
So now, which quarterback had the most regular season rushing yards entering the Super Bowl? So,
To
like
get to the Super Bowl.
right. So it's not like Michael Vick or somebody like that. Who had the most regular season rushing yards going into a Super Bowl?
I'm gonna say Steve Young.
Nope. Russell Wilson had 849.
Jiminy crickets.
And Jalen Hurts was second with 760.
Okay.
So,
Usually, quarterbacks that run that much, teams don't make the Super Bowl.
Right. But well, it was Russell Wilson's first year when
Yeah.
they beat
Yeah.
Denver.
Yeah,
So
I believe it.
and he had a whole bunch of rushing yards, but now he's old, so now he doesn't rush anymore. So the Eagles had 39 touchdowns this year. That it also includes playoffs. It is the most. The Packers are second of all time, 1962 with 37, and then there's
Super Bowl era.
pre-Super Bowl era. There's actually another team in the pre-Super Bowl era too, because there's 4 teams that are tied with 36, and I know you know one of them.
It's got to be Dallas.
Yes,
Probably the '95 Cowboys. 'Cause
and you're
Emmett set the touchdown record that year.
right. 36. Washington in '83 with
Okay.
36. Obviously, John Riggins.
Yep.
Steelers, Franco Harris, Rocky Blyer, 36, and the Chicago Bears in 1941 also had 36. Now,
Name a player off of that team.
Tom Fears.
All right.
I'm trying to say Sammy Baugh.
No,
Oh no, Sammy Baugh was with Washington.
he's with Washington.
Yeah.
You know, he and I are from the same hometown.
Really?
Yeah.
So you, Sammy Baugh, and Mean Joe Green?
And me and Joe Green.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, I knew Mean Joe Green,
Yeah.
so we've talked about this several times. So now I will say this: Mahomes is 7-0 in his last 7 games. He's averaged 29.44 yards per game. His total yards, and that's his production, he's averaged 293.4 yards, and his touchdown interception ratio is 17-5. Now Jalen Hurts was 8-0 because he did not play in the 2 games when Philadelphia lost. That was at Dallas and I can't remember the team offhand.
The Redskins. No.
No.
They did lose to the Redskins.
Right,
earlier in
but
the
he
year,
played.
that wasn't one of the games, though.
No. But anyway, he's 8-0. He's averaged 32 points a game, 279.8 total yards per game, and 18-4 was his touchdown ratio. Now, saying that, he really hasn't performed that great because the 2 games that they played, they were such big blowouts that they didn't need him to totally step up and be a Mahomes, as you would say.
Yeah. So both of the games he had what you would call pedestrian passing numbers.
Right.
Right. But where he was good was on third downs. He was good on third downs when he needed to be to keep the chains moving and keep the game moving forward. And so they haven't asked him in a while to be that guy in the pocket. And I
Right.
think this is the game where that will have to come into play, where he's going to have to win a little bit more. I believe that will probably be the scheme of and the plan for Kansas City. The game plan is to let's make him beat us in the pocket, not allow him to get outside the pocket and win with his legs.
Absolutely. So, saying that, this is also the 6th Super Bowl where the first team All-Pro quarterback is playing the second team All-Pro quarterback. The first one was in 1980, and this is a Super Bowl era. So 1981 was the first year. Ken Anderson, Joe Montana. So the first name I'll say is the first team. Mm-hmm. So Ken Anderson, Joe Montana. 1984, Dan Marino, Joe Montana. 1991, Jim Kelly, Mark Rippon. 2009, Peyton Manning, Drew Brees. 2016, Matt Ryan, Tom Brady, and that's the one that really shocks me the most. But I forgot that Ryan had that great of a year. And the sixth is Mahomes and Hurts. Now, what's the common denominator in all that?
That the second team guy win?
Has won every single match up until this one. So, Montana won both of his Super Bowls, and Mark Rippon. So, saying that, do you think Jalen Hurts, yes, he has a chance to beat Patrick Mahomes, but what is your assessment on thinking that if Hurts can do that?
Well, I if there's a duel, Mahomes wins the duel, right? He just got a sharper sword. But because there is so much with to play when we're talking about defense, special teams, all those other factors, at the end of the day, yes, he can. But, at the end of the day, I am thinking that the Chiefs are going to win this game.
So, saying that, what is your prediction of this game?
My prediction is 31-27 Chiefs.
We think alike because I have the Chiefs 31-28.
Okay.
They've been winning games by 3 and everything. So all that. Now we have talked. Now we've got the prediction down. So we got Kansas City. Now here's the thing, and I still say, because the fact that Patrick Mahomes lost, and I'm going to use him because I know the Chiefs lost, but Patrick Mahomes lost to Tampa Bay 2 Super Bowls ago. He is going to be focused. He is going to be, this is not one where you think, oh, we're going to go in and we're going to win, blah, blah, blah. They know. And everybody with the exception, it seems like, of Kansas City or Missouri and Kansas, thinks that Philadelphia is going to beat Kansas City. In fact, a lot of people think that they're going to beat them like the 49ers San Diego Charger game, the 49-26 score that they had. But I'm going to tell you this. Patrick Mahomes will have 1 turnover or less, and Jalen Hurts will turn the ball over at the most inopportune time, which tells me that the defenses are going to be very important. And I think the Chiefs' defense is going to step up like they did against Cincinnati. It's not going to be all game, but just like Cincinnati, there was a couple of plays where they made a play that was key, and it changed the momentum of the game.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. I just think it's going to come down to who has the ball last. And the way I see it is that the Eagles will be ahead 27 to 24. And Mahomes is going to drive the Chiefs down. They're going to score a touchdown, and it's going to be 31-27.
Gotcha. The last 2 minutes or less than that?
I'm gonna say it's actually going to happen just before 2 minutes.
Just before 2 minutes?
Yeah.
And then it's going to be up to the Chiefs' defense to shut down Hurts.
Right.
Now, name something that you would not expect. So, like Brock Purdy got injured. That would be an unexpected. What do you think will be an unexpected in this Super Bowl?
That Pacheco rushes for 100 yards.
Oh, there you go. I'm going to say that the special teams of the Chiefs are going to be flawless. They're going to have very few mistakes, and it's going to be a Philadelphia special teams error, mistake, some type of fault that will hinder them.
I think there's going to be a play where the Eagles are going to get caught in a blitz, and Pacheco's going to run about 40-something yards for a touchdown, right? And that's going to help him to getting to 100 yards, right? I'll guarantee a win. If Pacheco rushes for 100 yards, I'll guarantee a Chiefs win.
Well, there you go. Joe Namath to 2023 Joe Namath. So, but and unlike Joe Namath, where he just said, I guarantee we're going to win, he put a certain what will happen that they will win. So it's a little different. So now we are near the end of our show, and we always have a great show, but the best segment is still coming up with Penny for Your Thoughts.
So Penny for my thoughts, and for all my people, they'll probably say, okay, this is probably the last time he's going to bring this guy up, but I got to bring him up one more time. LeBron James and eclipsing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's all-time scoring record in the NBA. 38 is the number, okay? 38 is the number, so just keep that in mind. April 5th, 1984, Kareem eclipses Wilt Chamberlain's record. December the 30th, 1984, LeBron James is born. Same year. 38 years later, that's how long Kareem held the record.
Right.
38 years. He held the record, and then 38-year-old LeBron James breaks the record. Identically, he broke the record on the 38th day of the year in 2023.
Wow.
So 38 is really, really special when it comes to this NBA record. It may not be as hallowed as the home run record because it's hard to remember numbers in basketball because it's so many, right? You remembered 7:14 and when Hank Aaron hit 7:15, and then you remembered 7:55, and you remembered when Barry Bonds hit 7:56, and now the record is 7:62. Baseball is steeped in numbers that you can remember. They're nice and they're clean and they're even and they're round. But nobody knew exactly what that number was with Kareem, but it was 38,000 something.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
But now LeBron James has the record. He'll probably push it somewhere out to maybe 42,000. But I just want us to take time to remember that this young man, 38 years ago, was born in the same year. Who would have thought it? So is there a young basketball player that's going to be born in 2023 that will be the one who breaks LeBron James' record? The odds are the person who's going to break the record that LeBron sets, if it's ever broken, has not been born yet. And here LeBron was born the year that Kareem broke the record. 38 years later, he breaks the record as a 38-year-old veteran, 20 years in the league, and then on the 38th day of 2023. LeBron James, we take our hats off to you one more time. For those who say he's not the GOAT, we're not here. But what we have seen is 20 years of sustained elevation and playing the game at the highest level. And there's no drop-off right now from what he was as an 18-year-old young man. Coming in, heralded as the next Michael Jordan, heralded as the young prince, the young king, and he's done nothing to disappoint but only lived up to the expectations. That's your penny for your thoughts. LeBron James, the all-time NBA scoring leader.
And you could not have said that more perfect. And so I am going to say this. this was a phenomenal show. I truly enjoyed it. This was my birthday gift. Today was my birthday.
There it is.
Yep.
The awesome voice.
Yep.
Everybody say happy birthday to the awesome voice.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Happy
And-
birthday.
Yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you so much, and I appreciate both of you for everything you have done, and I truly enjoyed this. So I'm not going to say much more because Penny for Your Thoughts was incredible. So with this, Coach 24, Darwin Penny, DJ Scatter, George Walker. I am Brian Kress, the Awesome Voice. This is Any Given Sunday on KUAW. Be awesome, not angry, and you guys have yourself a phenomenal Super Bowl weekend.